What's happening? Andy here. I'm joined today by Valinda Cox of Konica Minolta. How are you, Valinda?
I'm great, Andy, and I'm really thrilled to be here to talk to you.
Well, it is great to see you. Great to have you on the show. We've known each other throughout the years. You have been in just a ton of different really cool roles within Konica Minolta, some here in the US, some all over. Why don't you I'll introduce you as an SVP of e-commerce per your LinkedIn um, profile, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do now with your role as VP of SVP of e-commerce?
Okay. Just a short on the back because I've held so many different roles, 27 years starting in the sales operation and working my way through larger sales and regional roles to a global responsibility with the enterprise space when I was in my last 5 years in the European assignment. But while there, as I did hold a role as VP of strategy planning at one point in the past, I have a strategic mind, and all I think about is the future constantly. In 19, I was thinking about go to market and the changes that were taking place already, and the acceleration that was happening in the commercial consumer markets related to buying with technology and buying online. I did extensive study of what was happening with some of the big players like Amazon and Alibaba, and really looked at in the B2B space once Amazon established their B2B, what was happening there. And, back in 19, they did, or excuse me, 18 going into 19, they were already at 18 and 19 billion respectively on their sales. But what really kind of set me in motion thinking about commerce in our industry and the manufacturing space was when I looked at that, they were doing 41% of their business. Brian Beck has a book on B2B commerce, a billion-dollar business. And in there, he had identified 41% of category business in the B2B space for Amazon was around office equipment and supplies. So
No kidding.
I was just, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so then doing extensive study around that. And then, of course, at the master level engagement, I really defined there's an opportunity for the manufacturing space. And then secondly, about improving experiences, utilizing technology, right? So whether that's taking the data and understanding that better to deliver more what the customer needs, because you're closer to the voice of customer through understanding behavior and what they're doing, but also delivering different experiences for your channels to be able to improve what they're offering to the market. So I mean, direct and indirect. And then you fast forward. So I put a plan in front of our senior management in late 19. It wasn't initially captured as let's go forward. But when you fast forward into January, I was pushing hard. And then by March of 20, the world had changed. And as a result of the world changing, I was given the mandate to go forward and to start, to build the strategy and where would we go with commerce on a global basis, starting with the business solutions business. And then it was what technology do we need, what infrastructure, and really identifying the players, the resources, the human resource required, and really formulating that plan forward. So if you fast forward now, we're in really just go live for the United States a week ago. So we're starting with the most viable product to market. We did take voice of customer really, really into a strategic impact to shaping our direction, both with our dealer council team and also customers, direct customers. So, interviewing them, surveying them, going back and checking with them on where we are and where we're progressing, just to understand, what's the needs, because the needs have changed so significantly.
Mm-hmm.
The market, customers want things instantly. They want immediate information. They want accessibility. But part of our strategy is really capitalizing on that hybrid approach of your subject matter experts, your sales organization, connecting information and human to customers in a faster way, delivering those experiences that they demand in a more immediate way. And that combo bringing a new value to market. And whether that's customers setting on-demand appointments online when they want to meet with us, or chatting live with someone to get immediate support, and or capturing opportunities that we can, in that larger digital universe, hand off to our channels, our distribution channels, which we're already seeing happening. So it's very exciting.
So this is way beyond just creating when you hear e-commerce, I think shopping cart and buying online. And what you just talked about was a lot of things besides that, infrastructure, setting appointments, research, support. I hadn't thought of any of those things. So let's let's pretend you're talking to a 5-year-old, because that's kind of what I am. That's how my wife gets her points across. And let's you know, you're up here, and you guys have you're one of the few companies that I follow that seems to really be talking about e-commerce quite a bit, right? And both in terms of what you're doing as a corporation going forward, how you're going to manage your own sales, your own channels, but then also trying to help bring or maybe drag some of your resellers along into this world, and showcase, you know, the opportunity they have there and why they need to be doing this. Because, you know, when these dealers hear e-commerce, they think, how am I, you know, the first thing they think is Amazon, and how am I supposed to compete with Amazon with this B2B model where I've got people banging on doors? So could you talk a little bit to what's going on with Konica in that respect? And then, you know, the real message I want to focus on after that is the dealer channel. These are the guys who are going to be watching this, and, you know, what they want to know is it scary? Is it something I need to do? Is it something I need to defend against? Is it something I need to embrace? You know, which is it for these guys?
Yeah, and I think first of all, you know, the dealers are extremely important. They're one of our, you know, we're about 50% of our revenue in the United States, so we want to enable their success. And you know, you have some larger ones who have capital and capabilities, and they're much more mature, maybe in their technology infrastructure, the way that they're operating their business. And then there's others that are beginning to make the move with investment there. But of course, COVID was a difficult time, and so, you know, as a manufacturer, we want to put together programs as well as the technology infrastructure and leverage it for them. So I'm already seeing communication leads coming in that we're handing back to our dealers, where if you think about the market, the size potential in the digital universe, and why I mentioned Amazon to begin with, all of our dealers and our direct organization cannot touch the available market. The human resource isn't scalable in that way, but the digital infrastructure can. You can do ad campaigns, digital advertising, search optimization. And the other thing I think that all of us realize at this point is that most buyers and buying, and you probably are the same, when you're shopping for something, you don't pick up the phone and call or just run to the store. Usually we're starting now on the web, looking and seeing what's there. And it's no different in consumer market than it is B2B. So all those behaviors that we've adopted and gotten used to personally are the ones that business buyers now expect as well. And, you know, there's other things we're finding, like that they're online on the weekends looking at business stuff. Well, our sales reps aren't selling on Saturday and Sunday, and they're online in the evening. So I'm watching the traffic on the Google Analytics, and you can see a very large number of people are shopping for business products at night when they're done with their work and they know they've got to do that.
They've
They're
got
browsing,
time.
you know, so it's interesting because we don't have our salespeople knocking on doors or making phone calls in any of our channels at 10 o'clock at night, for example. So it's an untapped area of opportunity. I think the most important thing is that, you know, where we can immediately bring value, we will. And that's where I was saying this lead generation, for example.
Yeah.
And longer term, in the midterm, to help our dealers who may need, because now we have a center of excellence operation out of the US. So it's very exciting to have this expertise where we can consult, whether that's for a dealer to start their business, start a digital ecosystem direction for e-commerce and for the other digital experiences they can provide, or if to help enable that, or it's to them later on, we could help them build storefronts and we could enable them to have that ability. So we really want to leverage the investments that we've made both with human resource and technology infrastructure to enable the success for all of our channels. I think the other piece, though, is that is a constantly changing, you know, every single day, there's a new emerging technology or a new emerging experience that can be, and it's a very complicated technology stack. So staying abreast of that change is super important. The other thing I would say is this is about real-time interaction. So in the traditional legacy approaches across all sales organizations, you know, it's a matter of time. Sales cycles are a little larger. There's a number of days after you make the initial call, you make the proposal, you know, so that moves at a different pace. And our behaviors have changed and our expectations. Something's delivered to the door within hours by Amazon. That's
Yep.
something I probably would never have imagined 5 years ago being a reality in most of the major cities. So the ability to get to a customer, answer their questions, provide them what they want immediately when they want it, not 2 days later. So it's interesting because the perception of leads, for example, from a marketing organization, maybe those leads are horrible. Well, if they go through a lead feed system in their CRM, their customer relationship management, and the next day or two, the sales rep picks that up. Maybe they were out sick or they were traveling and they didn't get to it. Well, the customer's already bought from someone who had an online presence. So they found those companies like Amazon and they've said, okay, I'm not sure if this is the price, but at least I can get it now, right now. I need it delivered this week, right? Those kind of things. So that both the expectations have changed, but also the ability to deliver on those expectations have changed. And we all across our industry need to be considering, how do we do things in different time windows, different time scales? How do we measure differently and really measure with customer experience in mind? I think so that continuous development, that release, that cycle of time that you're responding to customers' needs is something for consideration. But also in our industry, we've been very product-led, like product-led growth, I would say, or channel-led growth. And I think there's this experience-led growth that needs to help all of our organization and our industry change the way we go to market or evolve that a bit. So in a customer-led growth, we're really driving by leveraging the customer's insights and understandings. Well, the other piece to that is most of our sales organizations across all channels, they put a little information in the CRM. What am I going to sell, by when, and how much? Really, those are the metrics that we capture, very minimal. And when customers are online, we can now see, what are they clicking on? What did they spend time reading? What did they download? What are their interests? Well in advance of them touching a salesperson. And as Gardner says, about 67 to 80% of the sales cycle is completed when either a call is taken or an appointment is made. At that point, they've already done their due diligence and they looked at what they wanted to buy.
They vetted you. Yep.
Yep. So
but that's how it works. That's how you do your own, I mean, you made the point earlier, that's how you do your own research. And, I think we as an industry really need to take a look at our own personal habits. And I do that. We do that a lot around here. It's, and we evolve a lot of our videos and content around, looking at the data, looking at Google Analytics. What are people clicking on? What direction? What do they want? Give them what they want, right?
Give them what they want. Absolutely. And I think there's these three ways that we've always sold in the physical world. Like we've either, given, where it's like, I can get you a lot more information on that, thinking about from a sales perspective, or you're telling them, let me tell you what we need to know about that, right? So these are the approaches. But I think this sense making, if you will, which is referenced in some of the new market analyst papers, where they're talking about, it's a lot about information and let me make sense of that. So having that hybrid approach where you're marrying a physical sales expert with all that information they can get online in a way where you're delivering some unique value from the physical interaction, but you're giving the value that they need during the journey. There's lots of different people types, that personas, they want to buy differently. This is also important. We used to just be able to see, what office someone had in their role in the company and what company they work for and how big the company was. Like we could figure all that out by our own research. But today, after you see behavior online, you can start to see, are they someone that wants to be educated because they're always downloading information? Or are they someone that quickly goes through and makes decisions? Okay, you have a different type of persona type. Now you're starting to put an understanding of customers into, do they want reward, empowerment, learning? That's a whole different level of being able to deliver experiences because you understand them better.
Yeah. It's, you're a long way off from, when people hear e-commerce, they think, and I think that's the thing that, the dealers come back to, is that, how am I going to compete against Amazon? And what you're saying, this is so far beyond just, we're not talking about just putting your copiers online, your printers online, your, other hardware online. This is not, selling across state lines or selling into different markets. And how do I support it? This is using your website, using the data, giving people the ability to get in touch with you in a timely manner, right? making sure that the leads don't fall through the cracks, making sure that somebody follows up with them quickly so that they don't go to the next, because that's how it happens. I know when I'm researching something online, when I get to that point where it's, we'll call you, fill out this form. Well, let's see what the next website has to offer. If I can just get what I want without having to deal with somebody, without having, if I can get all the information I need and then make that order, or then, and if we as an industry don't provide that information, you're left out of that choice. It's like, a bid goes around, but you're not participating in it, right? I mean, that's the language I could put it in. These guys will understand, right? You're not in the game if you're not, and so let's talk about this dealer channel in the time that we have left. And what do you think? What do you think about their opportunity to make this turn? And obviously you've got big dealers, some are more well funded than some of the others. You've got medium, you've got some small dealers. So is this something that all of your dealers should be looking at? Is this something that is just some of them? Are you going to have a program, maybe more turnkey for some of these guys? What are you doing for them?
Well, I do agree with you. I think that all companies, whether it's dealer, direct, and especially in the manufacturing space that haven't already embraced an e-commerce strategy, they should be looking at it. It's not a thing of the future. It's here now. I interviewed over 14 global manufacturer, and their titles are global e-commerce leads. So, reporting into a CEO of a big global company, but running commerce, and ones that have been in business already 10 years to ones that had just started 2 years ago. They gave a lot of good advice, but everything was a resounding underscore around, if you haven't started, you need to get started. Well, there's different ways, right? You can partner with your manufacturer lead if they've got the expertise in-house to either help consult you on how to do and where to start, because we've put a lot of research and investment in getting it right. Then we also are looking at the program in our midterm plan of how we can help the customers, especially the smaller ones, build out the actual technology or integrate into the technology that Konica Minolta has already made. So there's a way to accelerate that time-wise to market. I think that the big thing for all these companies, and I'm talking about our channel partners, I'm talking about manufacturing in general, if they haven't started, is they have to also consider that the experience is as important or more important than the price or the product. And I didn't believe that, but I've read so many industry reports where thousands of companies have been interviewed, and this is a change in the behavior. Merkel, they had a study that said 66% of consumers related experience over price when they were making their purchasing decision.
Wow.
Well, that's crazy for any sales rep. I would be like, no, sales reps were, when I was selling years ago, price is most important. And of course, product and the quality is somewhere in there. But when you say 66% say the experience is important, you've got to think, well, what is that? That's how we engage. Do they have the information they want when they want it? Some of that means without a salesperson, right? Because some people don't want to talk during that in engagement and exploration. And then I think the other thing that's important is COVID's really magnified the importance of this digital first infrastructure. That's for all channels. That's real-time customer engagement. And I think, Microsoft CEO, because they've had significant growth, they're a good example of thinking about what's really important. And he said, we have to have 2 years of transformation we had 2 years of transformation in 2 months during COVID. And if you look at that, if people were already kind of saying, oh, do we need to do something out there with e-commerce in a couple of years in 1920? Today, it's not a choice. There has to be some thought. It's a lot of investment. So it's, how do you do it thoughtfully? But I think faster ways to solve it is working with your partners like Konica Minolta. So if you're a small dealer, especially, we can help. If you're a big dealer, most of them have already got plans and have started. So there are many companies in our industry in the dealer distribution side, and that's where I originated. I came out of the dealer family.
So where do they start? Where can these dealers? What's the first move?
I think getting insight and information. So, consulting with the partners that have, centers of excellence or operations in that is a good start. Partnering with industry analysts to check your strategy to see if it's right. Talking to companies like Gardner and as a validation point. But I think Konica Minolta itself is a good point for those that are working with us, because we now have both expertise in-house and some learned experiences, and we're already seeing successes. So And when I say successes, I mean different types of insights that customers we never could see before when we didn't have the digital ecosystem. And when I say digital ecosystem, I'm talking about commerce, the information that flows through your supply chain and your fulfillment, how you're communicating with your customer on and offline, and before and after transactions. All of those things have changed.
Amazing. Your area that you're working now is just fascinating to me, and it's really all the conferences I'm going to, several BTA conferences, e-commerce is just front and center, something that you know you're hearing from everywhere. You guys are pushing it. Key point intelligence now, the product testing lab, right now they have a whole e-commerce platform that they're putting together to help dealers, and there's others out there that are doing that as well. But it's just such a hot area. It's, to me, the opportunity is you go through these websites, through our industry's websites, and it's funny to me because we're a technology industry, right? We are advanced. We have advanced products. We have sophisticated, complex hardware and software, and we do all these amazing things. And then you look at a lot of our websites, and many of them, I won't point fingers, but there's a lot of them out there that are, you can tell they're still the same website they created 10, 20 years ago when they built their first website and said, here's our website. We have it. We don't need to change it. And it's not the same as your office, right? Like you don't just build it and then it's here forever. It needs to evolve. It needs, there's things that change. There's new ways of customers are scrolling through them. So just an update to begin with is probably in the cards for many of these guys, but really, I think it's a good time for everybody in our world to just take a look at what you're doing online, what's your presence like, and what are you doing with this? Because that website sits out there, like you said, 24/7. People are looking you up at times when your people are asleep, when they're not working, and maybe you need to have some bots on your site that are answering questions automatically and providing real-time answers to people based on databases that you guys have established. And so the nodding is telling me this is the direction that one of the things I think you're helping.
Absolutely. 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 I think, I mentioned earlier that the technology stacks can be complex. It's a lot to, put your arms and your minds around. But the North Star in digital transformation is less complexity. It's like, what I mean by that is making it less complex with less friction for customers to do what they want when they want to do it. And when they want to do it is anytime, 24/7, any day of the week. And that used to be boxed by, our framework of our traditional working
9 to 5.
hours. Right. I think that this is really, really important. And as we move forward, the technology, to your point, is changing every single day. So those emerging technologies that are coming, we have to be keeping our eye on that and adopting those that are going to have the most impact to the customers. Some of this stuff is very nice to have, so we wanted to start with the most viable product, meaning what do we need to get started, and then iterate with an agile and a Scrum framework methodology approach. So those are all also mindset changes, because organizations have they've worked with lean, and they've worked with waterfall approaches for projects where they could design things and they knew it was going to be X at the end of the day, and everything was figured out before we started the project. Well, today, to your point of change, you have to really think more agile. We're going to iterate every 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to reprioritize the backlog into our sprints for development, because we've learned something new from the customer through a dialogue and capture a voice of customers. So we have to make a change and pivot, and that's super important. And I would say the last thing is around growth mindset. There's a lot of us who've been very successful doing what we've done for years and years and years, and we might potentially have a bit of a fixed mindset there. But I would say the challenge for us is to change our minds in a way where we realize that we have to adopt new ideas, do creative thinking, think innovatively, challenge the status quo. And for that, we'll be extremely successful, because that's what's happening in the market and with the customers, and they demand all that change in the experiences they want to receive from us.
Well, your digital transformation is just been really fun to watch. I mean, it's, you've really over the last 10 years gone from, a hardware manufacturer to being a technology company. And there's others in our space that are, trying to make that turn too. And that's the trend, right? But that is what you guys are doing. And just you sitting here with this title and us having this conversation, I think is proof that, Konica Minolta is moving in a very ambitious direction that, I think is a direction that our industry needs to, move into and embrace. right? And things change. I mean, you look at your own buying habits. Look at, people are buying cars online, and a lot of people are going to watch this video, and many of them have bought cars online. So you look at that and you start thinking, like 20 years ago, you never would have thought about. Well, you didn't even know what online was, so to this extent, right? But now people are just buying anything online. I mean, over during COVID, people were buying homes online. You guys were selling $1 million presses online without anyone ever setting their hands on them. So it's just, we are getting there. You are one of the leaders in that space. And Valinda, this was just an absolute pleasure to talk to you about this. We could probably talk for hours on it, but we are up against it. I know we have to cut it off at some point. So I would love to follow up down the road after the new year and check in and see, maybe chat about the progress and some next moves that you guys are doing. But this has been absolutely great. Any last messages or shout outs to anybody?
No, I would just say thank you. It was fantastic to talk to you as well. And it's all about the customer. That's the center point, and we've got to deliver what they're expecting. That's most important. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year.
Yes, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, and great chatting with you, Valinda. Thank you so much.
Andy, bye-bye.